What's going on, y'all? It's Foose here. Hope y'all are doing great out there at this awesome time to be a horror fan. Today we got a fun one in store for you. We're going to talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Let's dive right into it. So this one will be released in August of 1988, written by Brian Hegland and directed by Rennie Hartland. We see Robert Englund back in this one portraying the role of Freddy Krueger, as well as some other returning cast members such as Rodney Eastman portraying Joey and Kent Goes as Kincaid. In this one, we would have Tuesday Night take over the role of Kristen Parker for Patricia Arquette, and we would see Lisa Wilcox portray Alice in this film. This one would go on to be pretty successful at the box office, making a decent amount of money here and actually being the highest grossing nightmare film in the franchise up until Freddy vs. Jason was released. So this one definitely had a pretty good amount of success. And kind of setting up the plot on this one, we're about a year after the events at Weston Hills. And at this point, Joey, Kincaid, and Kristen have all been released from the hospital and are trying to go back to living some sort of a normal life, up until where Kristen starts to kind of have dreams again, similar to what she was experiencing with Freddy. And it's not a lot of time wasted before Freddy is back in this one and finishing where he left off and taking out Joey, Kincaid, and Kristen all in pretty quick fashion in this one. Now, before she does ultimately meet her demise, Kristen is able to pull Alice, our kind of main final girl in this one, into her dream, where she basically puts her on Freddy's radar, also transfers her power that she has to pull people in and out of dreams and to do these different things. So she kind of puts the burden on Alice to carry up the fight with Freddy in this one. And Alice, along with her dwindling group of friends throughout this movie, are tasked with trying to basically outlast, survive, and ultimately defeat Freddy. So that's what we got on this one. Let's go ahead and dive into what I have on positives for this film. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into these positives here for Dream Master. First thing I'm going to point out is I'm a big fan of Alice and her character journey throughout this movie. Starting out as this quiet, timid, sort of very meek character early on, to becoming ultimately a very badass final girl by the time it's all said and done.
Fucking A.
And I love the way that we use the mirror to kind of as a mechanism to symbolize her transformation throughout this movie. You know, she's going through all these different events and she's dealing with all these different losses, and she's pulling pictures off of her mirror, which was originally just completely covered and she couldn't see herself at all. There's nothing but pictures of her friends and family. And slowly but surely, as she's pulling these pictures down and more of herself is becoming visible, till we ultimately get this point where she's preparing to go battle Freddy and she's having her whole little, we'll call it getting ready montage there. And she has the moment where she finally sees herself in the mirror for who she is, and you know, she's self-realized at this moment and she knows what she's capable of, and has turned from shy, timid, meek girl into this, you know, fearless, empowered dream master, for lack of a better word there. And I feel like that whole arc of her and the way she progresses throughout this film is a huge positive, and I'm a big fan of Alice. Moving on to my next positive I'll point out here is Kincaid's junkyard scene, where we ultimately see Freddy come back to life. And while that part's cool, you know, I'd like to see, you know, even though we get it from basically dog piss, but the way that Freddy regenerates and all is cool as shit. But what I really remember about this scene more than anything is after we see Freddy basically kind of fully regenerated, before he, you know, shows himself completely, we get this shot from behind the grave and you see Kincaid and he's just kind of staring off into the grave and the hand comes up out of it. And there's no like extra sound in the background. There's not a lot of music and nothing like that. It's just pretty simple, quiet moment where you see the hand come up. Kincaid kind of has this oh shit moment, starts like turning to go run away, kind of trips and falls a little bit. He's just scurrying off. And then we get the motif of that awesome fucking original music for the dream world, you know, and this zoomed up shot to Freddy, who's now standing outside the grave. We see the shadow, and then we pan up from the bottom, and he hits us with the, you know, you shouldn't have buried me line. That whole little sequence right there is fucking awesome.
You shouldn't have buried me. I'm not dead.
And Kincaid, true to form, has to deliver an awesome line in this one. He pushes a car over on Freddy as Freddy's kind of looking for him in the junkyard, and he hits with the "take that motherfucker" line, which is fucking priceless.
Take that, motherfucker!
But rest in peace, Kincaid. Would have liked to have seen him last longer in this movie, but overall, I'm a big fan of this whole junkyard sequence here and seeing Freddy's reintroduction back into the movie, so to speak. But moving on to my next positive, I'm going to point out here, and this is one I remember just really fondly from seeing this movie too young and the impression that this scene had on me. And that's Deb's sort of demise, we'll call it here. Deb's our fitness character and all, and she's working out at some point in the movie, and Freddy decides he's targeting her now, and he shows up there, and she's hitting the bench press, and Freddy at one point he shows up over top of her, and starts fighting back with the bar to the point where her arms basically snap out at her elbows, which you could have left it at that, and that was rough enough right there. I mean, I don't know, want to imagine what the fuck that would feel like. But we're just getting started there. Now, Deb earlier on in the movie has made it very obvious that she does not like bugs. So of course, Freddy's gonna have some fun with that shit, right? So we get to see Deb basically transform in her own little like werewolf-esque body horror fucking sequence where she turns into a cockroach essentially. She's got the feet, the feelers, and she's got the little pincher arms popping out at this point, and she's just kind of running. And she eventually finds herself in what is essentially an old Roach Motel bug trap with the sticky pad on the bottom and all of that. And she gets this moment where she falls, she loses her footing, and she goes face down on this awful sticky trap material. And as she's going to try to pull herself back up, her face is stuck down in it. It's just so uncomfortable looking. You watch it and you just kind of get grossed out seeing it. But as she's going to pull her face up off of this sticky pad, her face is stuck to it so hard that as she pulls up, she comes up, but her face does not. So that's just fantastic stuff there. And then Freddy ultimately would close this out in typical tongue-in-cheek Freddy fashion, where he just decides to squeeze the Roach Motel, and there goes Deb. But everything about that scene stuck out so much and stuck with me so much, I should say, from seeing it early on. It was it's one of the wildest things I can recall seeing as a kid. So I have a lot of fond memory to that scene in this movie. Moving on to what I'll add as my last positive here on this one is the demise of Freddy at the end and kind of what we get to see in that. And Alice defeats Freddy by essentially showing him his reflection, which harkens back to this sort of rhyme that her mother had taught her earlier on in her life. And essentially, what it boiled down to was that, in the mind's eye, if you show evil itself, it will defeat itself. I'm paraphrasing there a bit, but so that's what she kind of employs here to defeat Freddy. She shows him a broken piece of stained glass. He sees his reflection. And what he starts having happen essentially is all of the souls trapped within inside of Freddy decide to fight back and start fighting their way out of his body, literally. So you just start seeing all of these hands coming out of Freddy from all these various different spots, and it's pretty damn cool seeing to watch unfold. I feel like the way that Freddy meets his end in this one is super fucking cool. But that's what I've got on positives here. We'll go ahead and add a few negatives on this one, and we'll see what we got there. All right, y'all. So a couple negatives that I got here for Dream Master. First thing I'll point out here is while the practical effects are great and Freddy is done really well again in this movie, I do feel like there are some digital type effects, digital visual effects that we get in this movie that leave a little bit to be desired. And in particular, some of the things I think of that, you see a couple of moments when our character Sheila is at her desk and she's being attacked by this weird little robotic arm thing that comes up out of the desk. There's a couple moments in that where you look at it and it's okay, not the best. Also, the one that really sticks out the most to me is towards the end when Alice kind of grabs this wire out of like a panel and uses it to create some electrical charge through her little, bug mechanism that Sheila had given him. And when this happens, we get this hole that's kind of like shot through Freddy. And when they show that shot of him where Freddy's looking at the camera, you can see it from the front. It's pretty rough looking. So I'd say some of the digital effects, I mean, and maybe I'm just judging it too harshly through a 2026 lens. Maybe I'm nitpicking a bit here, but those leave a bit to be desired when you go back and watch this one. But moving on to what is probably my biggest negative about this movie, and say what you want here about my opinion on this one. Sorry, not sorry. I know he does not do anything offensive or wrong, and he's ultimately one of our good guys in this movie. But I am not a fan of Rick. And I mean, where do I start? From the goofy scenes that we have with him with this whole karate persona that he's got to his cringy comedy, I cannot stand this guy. And I mean, his death scene that we get, I think this is probably one of the weakest offerings of this franchise when it comes to a kill scene. I mean, you don't even see Freddy; you just see a glove flying around, and I don't know. Again, it just goes to that awful, cringy, like karate persona that he's got going on, and yeah, just Rick is not for me. And there's always a part that I do laugh my ass off when it comes to Rick. And next time you watch this movie, go back and watch this part. So when Kristen is in danger, and her room's on fire, Freddy's got her, and Alice and Rick try to make their way over there in a hurry to try to save her. They show up outside the house, and you can tell that the room's on fire from outside. So they go to start running into this house, and Rick hauls ass in this house. I mean, he's well ahead of Alice if you go when you watch when they run inside. Somehow, though, when we cut to the inside of Kristen's room and the door busts open, we don't see Rick first. We see Kristen's mom and Alice first, and then all of a sudden, like well behind, Rick comes running through. Like, how in this transition did you get so far behind? I mean, we know how. It was just so we could have the moment where Rick runs up behind and they kind of have to stop him, and we get this dramatic little moment that he gets to have there. But
Kristen!
not for me. Not a Rick fan, and he makes me roll my eyes at multiple times during this movie. Just not a big fan. I feel like all the time that this man got on screen, we could have found a way to keep my guy Kincaid around a little bit longer. But hey, I digress. I will say that is probably my other negative, though. I say it in a joking sense, but the fact that we don't get longer with Kincaid, just because of how big of a fan I am of Kincaid, I think that's a negative for this movie as well.
I'll see you in hell.
We could have killed off Joey early and found a way to keep Kincaid around for at least one more scene. Just give me a little bit more Kincaid in this movie, and that would have taken it up a notch for me. But in all seriousness, though, that's what I got on negatives here for this one. I'll go ahead and I got a couple final thoughts I'll add on this and we'll wrap this one up. All right, a couple quick final thoughts that I got here for Dream Master. First thing I'll point out, kind of like how I said I wish we would have gotten longer with Kincaid in this movie, another person I think deserved a better fate out of this one was Sheila. She's an awesome character. She got a pretty raw deal at what Freddy did to that poor girl. I feel like Sheila deserved better fate. But another thing on this one that kind of jumps out to me is this is a very nostalgic one for me as far as Nightmare films go. Is this was the first Nightmare on Elm Street film that I saw growing up. Saw this one pretty early as a kid because my family had a VHS copy of it. So this is not only the one that I saw first, but also the one that I probably saw the most because it was just you watched what you kind of had access to and stuff like that. So I mean, I got to see this one way more than I watched any of the other ones, especially up until probably more recently. In my older, my adult years and everything, going back and rewatching a lot of different movies. But this one was definitely the first one, and by far the one I have the most familiarity with for the longest time. So, definitely got a lot of nostalgia on this one for me. So I probably look at it through a little bit of rosy colored glasses. But and because of me, having such a nostalgic connection to this one, it being my first exposure to the franchise, it probably does put me in a minority camp on one hot topic issue about this movie, and that's the debate of Tuesday Night versus Patricia Arquette as Kristen Parker. Not that I don't really think Patricia Arquette is great as Kristen Parker, and I love Dream Warriors and all of that, but that came after the fact for me. So in my mind, I was introduced to Tuesday Night as Kristen Parker. So I think, well, if I'm going to compare which one does better performance, blah, 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 whatever, but like I look at Tuesday Night's performance in this movie probably a lot more fondly than a lot of other people that saw these movies sort of in the correct order probably do. Once if you saw Kristen at, by being played by Patricia Arquette, I should say, first, and then saw this one after the fact, I certainly could understand the sentiment there that a lot of people seem to have. But I saw it in reverse order, and she was my first exposure to the character, so I don't judge it nearly as harsh, I don't think, as some others do. And I mean, in that song, though, come on. I mean, that's a fucking earworm there, buddy. You know this. Everyone knows the song. But
Can't sleep tonight. Gotta run, gotta hide. From this nightmare. I turn around, but there's no one there. And I'm running.
yeah, that's what I got on this one. As I kind of alluded to there, I remember this one quite fondly as far as sequels in the Nightmare franchise go. I'm putting a rating on this one. Probably gonna say it's 3.5 out of 5. And if I'm knocking it down a bit, it's probably just because the more I do watch this movie, the more I fucking can't stand Rick. But yeah, that's what I got on this one. So we're gonna do a little bit of different stuff coming up here on the channel. We got some plans for some more current stuff we're gonna interject in the middle of things here, but we're gonna get back to normal on these Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street reviews before too much longer. But I won't spoil too much about what's coming up on the channel here, but be on the lookout. If you stuck with me through this long, as always, go and hit that subscribe button for me. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and share this channel with some horror friends of yours. It's greatly appreciated on my end. In the meantime, though, y'all take it easy. We'll see you.